Part 3 of OCLC. OCLC's Bibliographic Formats and Standards details the use of Mark 21 in the WorldCat database. In the contents, it is good to check out About This Guide and Chapters 1 through 5 to get to know a bit more about the utility, what OCLC does to ensure consistent and coherent application of cataloging practices in its part of the bibliographic universe, and some best practices for its use. But the meat of the guide is really the sections detailing the use of Mark 21 based on the area of description. To apply the data we've been exploring so far, check out the 2XX fields and 4XX fields sections. Let's look at the 2XX fields information to explore getting around in bib formats. First, it is easy to navigate between areas with the links at the top, so if you need to switch to a different area, it's easy to do without having to go back to the main menu. But you can also go back to that main menu from the top of the left-hand navigation menu. Then you can navigate inside each area to the specific Mark 21 field that you need on the left side of every area page, which you can see in the title statement Mark Field 245 page as well. The beginning of each page has some information about the field as a whole, including information about each indicator, as well as whether the field is mandatory, optional, or required, because it applies to something specific about the item in hand. Then there is a list of all of the possible subfields included within that mark field, whether they are mandatory or not, and links to the detailed guidelines below for each particular subfield. Below that begins the detailed description of the field and its subfields, starting with the definition of what the field contains. And then as you scroll down, you begin to see the full guidelines for mark field use. These guidelines include more narrative descriptions of the content and use of a mark field, and begin to specify the application to different types of description. The guidelines go into greater detail for the indicators and the options for each, as well as provide examples of their use. And then each subfield is defined with guidance on how to apply it and examples of good use. Each page concludes with information about appropriate punctuation according to ISBD standards. And at the very bottom of the page is a link to the same mark field in the Library of Congress MARC website, which has definitive usage information and history of application changes for that mark field. In the event that a field or subfield has different applications for different formats, those are designated by a heading that includes the code for the format. In this example, there are different guidelines for the Mark 264 field depending on whether you are describing a continuing resource, a computer file, or a sound recording.